Hi friends, I took a photo every single day during the month of January, and I'm going to tell you about that experience. Now, taking a photo every single day for just 1 month may not sound like that big of a challenge, and in terms of logistics, it's not really that big of a challenge taking a photo. You can do that with your phone, your camera, whatever it might be. There's a couple different ways that I went about it, but it was really about the ideas and the creativity and pushing myself to take different photos every single day. That's where the challenge came in. So I'm going to talk about it. But before we do, let's talk about the rules that I gave myself. There weren't really a whole lot of rules, but there were a couple. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So like I said, there weren't really any rules to this challenge. I could take photos with the Fuji X-T3, whatever lens I was using. Took some with my phone. I even took some screenshots that I thought were important. And there were a couple where I wasn't actually the one taking the photo. A couple of them were my wife, but really they were photos that were happening every single day. Additionally, I didn't have to just take one photo. There were a couple times where I was out doing a full street photography session or at a family gathering and took many photos. And that was okay. I'm going to show you a lot of photos and really only show you one photo from each day. I'm not going to show you all of them, but know that there were also times where there were more photos being taken. And in terms of type of photos, it could be anything. A lot of them were just documenting everyday life. Some of them were more intentional and setting up a shot here at home with a backdrop and lighting and a tripod. Some of them were out in the community, walking the streets or downtown Chicago, whatever that might be. And that's okay. They ranged from all sorts of things, but the goal of this whole challenge was to have me making photos every single day, because there had been a while where I felt like I wasn't picking up my camera as much as I wanted to. I wasn't being as creative with my photography, and I wanted to just try and take different photos over the course of a month. So I'm going to share some of those photos here with you and talk about some of my favorites, what my thinking was, some of the challenges that I had making some of these photos, and just share with you that experience. Hopefully some of these photos resonate with you. If they do, let me know down in the comments just what they're sparking in you, what thoughts you have, maybe what photos you're going to go try and create yourself. Now, starting off in January 1st, I decided to just go walk around my neighborhood. I don't live too far from the train tracks here in the suburbs of Chicago, and so I knew that I could take a pretty decent photo of the train coming by, and it was pretty white and snowy that day, so I went and walked up to that train tracks and was able to capture this photo. I do think this is one of my better photos of trains. I've taken a lot of them in Chicago. We have both the Metro for the suburbs and the L in the city. And for some reason, I really like this one. So I was proud with how things got started. And moving into the second day, January 2nd, I am currently in my office. And as you can see, things are relatively set up. But that wasn't always the case. I had to do a lot of taking things out of this room, so I had it just completely empty for most of the month. So I used this as a little bit of a backdrop. And this photo was really to capture what this challenge means, because the light bulbs above my head, obviously a little on the nose about what an idea is, and having some creative ideas in a pretty open, empty space. I then moved to some product photography. I did a photo of my original, the very first DSLR that I ever had. It was the Nikon D5300, and played around with just different styles of lighting and kind of moody, dark lighting of a product photography photo. Now, one of my favorites of the month was January 4th. One of my best friends and college roommates, he proposed to his longtime girlfriend and asked me to make some photos of that moment. So being down at the ice rink in Chicago at the Bean, I was able to capture this photo. To me, this is one that I know I was proud to be there, proud to make, and they had an amazing moment for them that I'm sure they will remember forever. But then throughout the month, I took a couple of different self-portraits. Now, I'm going to share a couple of them here, and they all meant something a little bit different in what I was trying to achieve. This first one, I was using the flash that comes with the Fuji X-T3. It's not a big off-camera flash. It's a pop-up. It's nothing fancy, but I wanted to play with it a little bit and see what I could do. So I set up my backdrop and took a pretty hard direct flash photo, and this is what I came up with. The next day, I decided to take a self-portrait out in my backyard, and this was a little bit of a happy or maybe creepy accident. Because it was dark, I had to have a long shutter speed, a long exposure, and one of the exposures that I ended up taking had a little bit of my face blurring. I don't remember exactly what I looked over at, but there was something that caught my attention. And I got this really blurry face photo that is kind of unique in its own way. And so I ended up making that the photo of the day. And then again, at the end of the month, I did a couple of self-portraits because I had a concept in mind and the first one didn't really work out. So this is the first one here. Really, in this photo, while I think it's an okay photo, all of the colors match too much. There's no real contrast. I was hoping to use the butcher paper on the back wall to kind of make something pop, and it just didn't really come together in this photo. So a couple of days later, I changed things up. I brought the butcher paper here into this office with the black wall, and obviously had some actual colors in my clothing and my beanie, and was able to make a much better portrait, which, if you haven't seen, has become my profile photo on pretty much all of my social media. So this is one that I'm now proud of and actually using. But again, some of the photos throughout the month weren't all that intentional in terms of being artistic or more of something that's going to go on Instagram. There were moments within just everyday life. Like I said, I had some work going on in my house. I had to get some floors redone, and that meant everything in this office had to move down into our living room, and things were a little bit chaotic. So I just wanted to capture some of that. So I have a couple of photos of like the office being empty. I also have photos of all of the stuff in the living room. And again, those are just moments that I'm going to want to remember that, 5 years down the road, I'm going to remember, oh my gosh, that time where we literally had to live with our dressers in the living room for 3 weeks. And that was just a funny memory. Although it was stressful during the time, it's now funny looking back on it. So little moments like that I know I'm going to want down the road. And the last category that I wanted to share a couple of the photos of are some of my street photography. I went downtown Chicago and did a couple of different photo shoots throughout the month, and was able to make a couple of photos that I'm proud of. So the first is this black and white photo. If you aren't familiar, I've been doing a new series here on the channel called the Wheel Spin Challenge, or Spin the Wheel Challenge. What am I calling it? We're gonna go with Spin the Wheel Challenge, where I spin a wheel and it tells me what type of gear I'm gonna be using and what type of photography I'm going to be using for a dedicated street photography session or photo walk. And in this case, I ended up doing some black and white photography, and I really ended up liking this one with all of the different layers across the image, with the bridges and the train and the bus and all of that, just kind of make this image what it is. And again, I'm proud of it. Some others are of a beautiful, a brighter day here for the winter, getting a classic street photo of a guy walking across the street. In my second round of doing Spin the Wheel Challenge, I was doing a color challenge and focused on the color red. So this guy's coat that he had underneath and his scarf caught my attention. And so I was able to make a photo of him as he was crossing the street there. Again, just some random photos of just winter and going on walks around the block. There's a couple of photos that I really like. Just looking out the window at the snow, trees out the backyard, the park around the corner, even me doing some snow blowing. It's now part of my life that I've moved out here to the suburbs. And I took this just as a screenshot from my doorbell camera. And to me, it's again, just being a little creative and thinking outside the box of what that photo of the day can be. It captured what I did that day, and it is technically a photo. One other concept photo that I had was thinking about all the time that we spend staring at screens. Obviously, I'm creating content for you here on the internet, and you're staring at some version of a screen watching this video. I know I do this all the time, and sometimes it's on my phone, sometimes I'm on the couch watching videos on my iPad, whatever it might be. I wanted to capture a little bit of that, and so I came up with this concept of sitting in the darkness on a couch and just having the screen of my iPad really lighting my face. And I really like the contrast between the different colors of light. There is a lamp off screen, just out of frame, that is a warmer light, but I have the cool blue light from my iPad hitting my face. And to me, this is one that I liked conceptualizing and then being able to execute on it. Now, one scary story that happened this month was that I thought I was going to lose my 50 to 140 f2.8 because it got dropped. And the back of it was coming a little undone from the rest of the lens. This was the photo. This is all I could come up with that day. So this was the next day after it happened. I finally brought myself to actually look at it, pull it out, and kind of examine it and see what I needed to do. luckily, I was able to just pop a few screws back in there, and I've been doing some testing with it, and it's been all good. It's autofocus has been great. I have not had any issues. It just seems to be working fine. So far so good. I'm going to keep an eye on it, but that was a little bit nerve-wracking. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a few more photos up just in a bit of a slideshow. These are other photos that I took throughout the month that mean some things to me, and they might mean something to you, but to me it was really about the experience of challenging myself to think outside the box. What photo can I take, and really no other limitations in terms of what that photo needs to be. And I did find myself just being more creative. Now, the pressure of the day kind of got to me at a few times, and that's okay. It's not something I was going to do long term. So it being a pressure within the day, within the month was okay to me. If I was going to do this much longer term, I would come up with some systems and probably brainstorm a lot more ideas up front than I did within just a month challenge. But let me know what you think and other ideas that you have for this type of photo challenge down in the comments below. As I said, I am back in my office. I am set up, and so I am going to be doing an office tour here very soon. So make sure and hit subscribe so that you know when that video comes out. But until then, I'm going to keep making things, and I hope you do too.